1906. Immigration increased throughout the latter half of the 19th century. Starting with refugees from the Great Famine of Ireland in the 1840s, New York became a prominent entry point for those seeking a new life in the United States. Between 1855 and 1890, an estimated 8 million immigrants passed through Castle Clinton at Battery Park in Manhattan. Early in this period, most immigrants came from Ireland and Germany. Ellis Island opened in 1892, and between 1880 and 1920, most immigrants were German and Eastern European Jews, Poles, and other Eastern and Southern Europeans, including many Italians. By 1925, New York City's population outnumbered that of London, making it the most populous city in the world. Arguably New York's most identifiable symbol, liberty enlightening the world, the Statue of Liberty, a gift from France for the American Centennial, was completed in 1886. By the early 20th century, the statue, designed by sculptor Frederick August Bartholdi, was regarded as the mother of exiles, a symbol of hope to immigrants. New York's political pattern changed little after the mid-19th century. New York City and its metropolitan area was already heavily Democrat. Upstate was aligned with the Republican Party and was a center of abolitionist activists. In the 1850s, Democratic Tammany Hall became one of the most powerful and durable political machines in United States history. Boss William Tweed brought the organization to the forefront of city and then state politics in the 1860s. Based on its command of a large population, Tammany maintained influence until at least the 1930s. Outside the city, Republicans were able to influence the redistricting process enough to constrain New York City and capture control of the legislature in 1894. Both parties have seen national political success. In the 39 presidential elections between 1856 and 2010, Republicans won 19 times and Democrats 20 times. 1901 through the Great Depression, edit. By 1901, New York was the richest and most populous state. 2 years prior, the 5 boroughs of New York City became one city. Within decades, the city's emblem had become the skyscraper. The Woolworth Building was the tallest building in the world from 1913, surpassed by 40 Wall Street in April 1930, the Chrysler Building in 1930, the Empire State Building in 1931, and the World Trade Center in 1972 before losing the title in 1974. The state was serviced by over a dozen major railroads, and at the start of the 20th century and electric interurban rail networks began to spring up around Syracuse, Rochester and other cities in New York during this period. Theodore Roosevelt. In the late 1890s, Governor Theodore Roosevelt and fellow Republicans such as Charles Evans Hughes worked with many Democrats such as L. Smith to promote progressivism. They battled trusts and monopolies, especially in the insurance industry, promoted efficiency, fought waste, and called for more democracy in politics. Democrats focused more on the benefits of progressivism for their own ethnic working class base and for labor unions. Democratic political machines, especially Tammany Hall in Manhattan, opposed women's suffrage because they feared that the addition of female voters would dilute the control they had established over groups of male voters. By the time of the New York State referendum on women's suffrage in 1917, however, some wives and daughters of Tammany Hall leaders were working for suffrage, leading it to take a neutral position that was crucial to the referendum's passage. Following a sharp but short-lived depression at the beginning of the decade, New York enjoyed a booming economy during the Roaring Twenties. New York suffered during the Great Depression, which began with the Wall Street crash on Black Tuesday in 1929. The Securities and Exchange Commission opened in 1934 to regulate the stock market. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was elected governor in 1928, and the state faced upwards of 25% unemployment. His Temporary Emergency Relief Agency, established in 1931, was the first work relief program in the nation and influenced the National Federal Emergency Relief Administration. Roosevelt was elected president in 1932 in part because of his promises to extend New York-style relief programs across the country via his New Deal. In 1932, Lake Placid was host to the 3 Olympic Winter Games. World War II and the Modern Era, edit. As the largest state, New York again supplied the most resources during World War II. New York manufactured 11% of total United States military armaments produced during the war and suffered 31,215 casualties. The war affected the state both socially and economically. For example, to overcome discriminatory labor practices, Governor Herbert H. Learman created the Committee on Discrimination in Employment in 1941, and Governor Thomas E. Dewey signed the Ives-Quinn Act in 1945, banning employment discrimination. The GI Bill of 1944, which offered returning soldiers the opportunity of affordable higher education, forced New York to create a public university system since its private universities could not handle the influx. The State University of New York was created by Governor Dewey in 1948. World War II constituted New York's last great industrial era. At its conclusion, the defense industry shrank and the economy shifted towards producing services rather than goods. Returning soldiers disproportionately displaced female and minority workers who had entered the industrial workforce only when the war left employers no other choice. Companies moved to the south and west, seeking lower taxes and a less costly, non-union workforce. Many workers followed the jobs. The middle class expanded and created suburbs such as the one on Long Island. The automobile accelerated this decentralization. Planned communities like Levittown offered affordable middle-class housing. Larger cities stopped growing around 1950. Growth resumed only in New York City, in the 1980s. Buffalo's population fell by half between 1950 and 2000. Reduced immigration and worker migration led New York State's population to decline for the first time between 1970 and 1980. California and Texas both surpassed it in population. New York entered its third era of massive transportation projects by building highways, notably the New York State Thruway. The project was unpopular with New York City Democrats, who referred to it as Dewey's Ditch and the enemy of schools, because the thruway disproportionately benefited upstate. The highway was based on the German Autobahn and was unlike anything seen at that point in the United States. It was within 30 miles, 50 kilometers, of 90% of the population at its conception. Costing $600 million, the full 427-mile, 687 kilometers, project opened in 1956. Nelson Rockefeller was governor from 1959 to 1973 and changed New York politics. He began as a liberal, but grew more conservative. He limited SUNY's growth, responded aggressively to the Attica prison riot, and promulgated the uniquely severe Rockefeller drug laws. The World Trade Center and other profligate projects nearly drove New York City into bankruptcy in 1975. The state took substantial budgetary control, which eventually led to improved fiscal prudence. The executive mansion was retaken by Democrats in 1974 and remained under Democratic control for 20 years under Hugh Carey and Mario Cuomo. Late-century Democrats became more centrist, including U.S. Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, 1977-2001, and New York City Mayor Ed Koch, 1978-1989, while state Republicans began to align themselves with the more conservative National Party. They gained power through the elections of Senator Alphonse D'Amato in 1980, Mayor Rudolph Giuliani in 1993, and Governor George Pataki in 1994. New York remained one of the most liberal states. In 1984, Ronald Reagan was the last Republican to carry the state, although Republican Michael Bloomberg served as New York City mayor in the early 21st century. Last decades of 20th century, edit. In the late 20th century, telecommunication and high technology industries employed many New Yorkers. New York City was especially successful at this transition. Entrepreneurs created many small companies, as industrial firms such as Polaroid withered. This success drew many young professionals into the still dwindling cities. New York City was the exception and has continued to draw new residents. The energy of the city created attractions and new businesses. Some people believe that changes in policing created a less threatening environment, crime rates dropped, and urban development reduced urban decay. This in turn led to a surge in culture. New York City became, once again, the center for all things chic and trendy. Hip-hop and rap music, led by New York City, became the most popular pop genre. Immigration to both the city and state rose. New York City, with a large gay and lesbian community, suffered many deaths from AIDS beginning in the 1980s. New York City increased its already large share of television programming, home to the network news broadcasts, as well as two of the three major cable news networks. The Wall Street Journal and the New York Times became two of the three national newspapers, read throughout the country. New York also increased its dominance of the financial services industry centered on Wall Street, led by banking expansion, a rising stock market, innovations in investment banking, including junk bond trading, and accelerated by the savings and loan crisis that decimated competitors elsewhere in New York. Upstate did not fare as well as downstate. The major industries that began to reinvigorate New York City did not typically spread to other regions. The number of farms in the state had fallen to 30,000 by 1997. City populations continued to decline while suburbs grew in area, but did not increase proportionately in population. High-tech industry grew in cities such as Corning and Rochester. Overall, New York entered the new millennium in a position of economic strength and optimism. 21st century, 2001 present day, edit. In 2001, New York entered a new era following the 9/11 attacks, the worst terrorist attack ever to take place on American soil. Two of the four hijacked passenger jets crashed into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center, destroying them, and killing almost 3,000 people. One flew into the Pentagon, demolishing the walls. The final one was almost taken back over by the passengers aboard and crashed into an open grassland with 296 out of the 500 people dead. Thousands of New Yorkers volunteered their time to search the ruin for survivors and remains in the following weeks. Following the attacks, plans were announced to rebuild the World Trade Center site. 7 World Trade Center became the first World Trade Center skyscraper to be rebuilt in 5 years after the attacks. 1 World Trade Center, 4 more office towers, and a memorial to the casualties of the 11th of September attacks are under construction as of 2011. 1 World Trade Center opened on the 3rd of November, 2014. On October the 29th and 30th, 2012, Hurricane Sandy caused extensive destruction of the state's shorelines, ravaging portions of New York City, Long Island, and southern Westchester with record-high storm surge, with severe flooding and high winds causing power outages for hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers, and leading to gasoline shortages and disruption of mass transit systems. The storm and its profound effects have prompted the discussion of constructing seawalls and other coastal barriers around the shorelines of New York City and Long Island to minimize the risk from another such future event. Such risk is considered highly probable due to global warming and rising sea levels. See also, edit. 1. Historical outline of New York. 2. History of New York City. 3. History of the Mid-Atlantic States. Notes, edit.
Good. So that's one I will keep open for now a little bit. Let's keep it open. Because I use it, the link, put it to the New York State, duplicate. Let's put it here for now, because maybe I need the link, and delete. History of rail transport, American Civil War, Wall Street crash. But let's read the history of New York City. Let's read this, and I have this boroughs of New York City. So let's read it next, history of New York City. So so this will take forever to read. So I will upload this. It's 2:15. The sun is burning down. So I'll do that. I will charge my camcorder, take a small break, could open my door a bit. So the weather is very nice. I can go buy some more cheap cola. But this video is not just about New York City or New York State, it's about the whole United States. But somewhere I had to start somewhere, and I did start the New York City, so I need to get back and read a bit more New York City. So the weather is very nice. But this read was not super long. But that you need a lot of money if you're going to living close to New York City. you need to have a lot of money, I think. Because housing, everything is very expensive. Housing, food, transport, everything costs money.